I froze mid-step in the church hallway, the air sharp with lilies and champagne, as my cousin's offhand murmur struck like a slap. $15,000 for a wedding gift. You're an amazing sister. In that instant, the envelope in my purse seemed to triple in weight. $5,000, 2 months of packed lunch, canceled weekends, extra shifts suddenly felt like a shameful secret rather than a sacrifice. I turned with a smile. My profession had trained to hold under floodlights, said something agreeable that I couldn't remember, and kept walking even as the ground tilted beneath my heels. By the time the bathroom door clicked shut, the performance was over. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone as I opened my bank app, the numbers glowing like a dare. The gift card receipt in my email confirmed it in crisp, black type $5,000. Yet somewhere between Sunday brunch and today, my mother had floated another number into the current, and the family had carried it downstream as if it were gospel. 15,000. I could hear her voice from last week, casual and cutting. With your PR salary, people expect something substantial. The word stretched like taffy until it snapped. My younger sister Mia, perfect hair, perfect laugh, had nodded along. Jenny's sister gave 20,000. Must be nice. I rinsed my wrists under cold water and stared at my reflection. Amelia Allen, 31, competent, unflappable, the daughter who always came through. Only my eyes betrayed the charge building behind the glass, an ember of something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not even anger, a hard, clean heat that looked a lot like resolve. The pattern unspooled in my mind with relentless clarity the final semester I covered, when Mia decided to study abroad. The not quite repaid loan for our parents' roof. The medical copays I quietly took care of when Dad tweaked his knee. The emergency funds when Mia's car died. Even the anniversary cruise that somehow became my obligation. Each ask wrapped in the tissue paper of family first, each thank you, faint enough to be mistaken for silence. I had kept records partly for my own sanity, and partly because numbers told the story no one wanted to hear. Back in my hotel room after rehearsal, I opened the spreadsheet that never lied and ran my finger down the column of transfers. $4,700 for Dad's surgery bills. $7,200 for the roof. $11,340 for Mia's Barcelona semester. $3,890 for the car. $5,450 for that cruise that made my mother glow and made my savings bleed. The total at the bottom stared back like a verdict, $47,380 in 3 years. When my friend Kate called, she didn't bother softening the truth. Mel, that's financial abuse. She said, fierce and protective as always. The phrase wasn't a condemnation, it was a diagnosis. I felt something shift under my ribs the way a locked window yields when you finally find the latch. If I don't give what they promised, I'll look like the villain, I said already, hearing the whispers spiraling through our family tree. Only to people who don't matter, Kate answered. This is the moment you stop being their story and start telling your own. After we hung up, I set the phone on the desk and stared at the leather photo album I'd assembled for Mia Sandcastle's snow angels, sunburned smiles with Dad on canyon trails. Inside the cover I had written, money disappears, furniture breaks, our memories are the real inheritance. I ran my thumb over the inscription and realized it wasn't sentimentality, it was strategy. My mother's voicemail arrived at nearly the same moment as a social media tag, her voice syrupy with stage direction. We're telling everyone about your generous contribution. 15,000 is so meaningful since Mia was born on the 15th, and my cousin's caption trilled across my screen, family goals. A trap constructed out of etiquette and perception, and I was supposed to blunder into it with an obedient smile. I shut off my phone and called the DJ from the hotel landline, confirming a slot in the toasts right before my mother's. The wedding planner, done up in a serene smile and comfortable shoes, slid me onto the program without a blink. Of course, she murmured. She didn't need to know what the speech would contain. She only needed to know when it would arrive. I drafted in longhand first because pen and paper kept me honest. The words had to be surgical, no ranting, no scorched earth, just truth spoken cleanly enough that it couldn't be dismissed as hysteria. When the sentences tightened, I typed them and tucked the page behind the photo album. I imagined the room, the clink of silver against china, my mother's perfected nod, Mia sparkling under the chandeliers, and me taking 3 steps into the space between the story they rehearsed and the one I would tell. The next morning's compliments came like sleet soft on the surface, stinging in accumulation. Such a generous sister and aunt whispered over mimosas. "You're setting the bar." The maid of honor laughed by the fruit tray. Across the room, my mother lifted her glass toward me, as if conducting a symphony only she could hear. In the bridal suite, she finally said it to my face, the lie dressed in pearls. "I've told everyone $15,000. Don't embarrass us." The old script expected my apology. What she got instead was a quiet, steady, "I never agreed to that," and the unmistakable sense that the room's gravity had shifted. I moved past her toward the door, the photo album pressed to my ribs like armor, and felt the old version of me, pliable, useful, practiced at swallowing her own needs, peel away. Uncle William caught my shoulder in the hallway and squeezed once, his voice low enough to be a secret and true enough to be a blessing. "Some storms need to break." I nodded, and for the first time in a very long time, I believed that I could be the one to call the weather by its name. The ceremony unfolded in a haze of lace and rehearsed vows. I stood near the altar, bouquet in hand, eyes fixed on my sister's radiant face, wondering if she felt even a flicker of guilt beneath all that satin and applause. When the guests rose for the newlyweds' kiss, I clapped like everyone else, but inside a different rhythm built a countdown. By the time the reception lights shimmered over the ballroom and champagne flowed freely, my decision had hardened into steel. My mother floated from table to table, radiant in her mother of the bride glow, laughing too loudly, soaking up compliments meant for Mia. She never once looked at me directly, only checking that I remained in my assigned seat, ready to deliver the performance she'd choreographed. The father-daughter dance ended in applause. That was my cue. I caught the DJ's eye, and he nodded, his earlier confusion replaced by quiet understanding. "Before we hear from the mother of the bride," his voice carried through the speakers, "Amelia Allen would like to say a few words." The silence that followed was almost theatrical. My mother froze mid-step, the color draining from her face as all eyes turned toward me. I rose, smoothing the burgundy dress that suddenly felt like armor, and crossed the polished floor toward the microphone. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. "I've thought a lot about my gift to my sister today." I began, my voice, even the PR tone, softened by sincerity. "And I realized money can be spent, furniture can break, but love and truth last forever." My mother leaned forward, eyes wide with alarm. Behind her, Dad shifted uncomfortably. Mia's new husband glanced between us, uncertain whether this was heartfelt or dangerous. Instead of a number, I continued, "I want to give a blessing. Build your marriage on honesty, not on forced sacrifice." A ripple moved through the room. A few guests nodded. Some exchanged startled glances. My mother tried to stand, but the DJ, bless him, stepped subtly in her way. I reached beneath the table and lifted the burgundy leather album I'd carried all morning. The chandeliers caught its glossy cover as I opened it to the first page. "This," I said, walking toward Mia, "is our real inheritance." I stopped beside her, flipping to a photograph of us, as children, arms wrapped around each other, smiling with lake water dripping from our hair. "Remember this?" I asked softly. "You were terrified of the water, and I taught you to float." Mia's face crumpled, tears spilling despite the makeup. Around us, murmurs turned to applause. "I hope you fill this with moments that can't be bought," I said, pressing the album into her trembling hands. "That's worth more than any dollar amount." The photographer, sensing something raw and real, captured the moment the bride's mascara streaked the older sister standing tall, unflinching. The applause grew louder, not for drama, but for truth daring to speak aloud. When I returned to my seat, Uncle William was already on his feet, clapping. Aunt Judith joined him, then half the room followed. My mother remained frozen, her practiced smile stretched too tight. My father patted her hand without meeting her eyes, his lifelong silence a familiar echo. The DJ shifted to the next song and conversation resumed, but the air felt different, lighter, honest, electric. Later, as guests milled near the dessert table, Mrs. Robertson, my mother's bridge partner, leaned close and whispered, "About time someone told the truth in this family loud enough for my mother to hear." The look on Mom's face could have cut glass. I pretended not to notice, sipping my champagne with a calmness that surprised even me. Mia found me near the cake, the album clutched to her chest. Her eyes were swollen, voice hoarse. "You made me look terrible," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I gave you a chance to be better." She blinked, unsure how to respond. Before she could speak, our mother appeared, her smile brittle as porcelain. She gripped my wrist tightly, nails pressing crescents into my skin. "You humiliated us in front of everyone," she hissed, her voice a razor wrapped in charm. "I was thinking about honesty," I replied, refusing to pull away. Dad appeared, behind her jaw clenched but silent as always. "Your sister deserved better," he muttered, though even he seemed unconvinced. "You mean the sister you all told I'd give $15,000. My tone stayed even, calm as a still lake. "After I already paid $47,000 over the past 3 years to cover your debts, your house repairs, your vacations." The words dropped between us like stones. Mia's face paled. "That's not true?" Mom began, but I was already pulling the folded sheet from my clutch, the spreadsheet printed this morning. "Every transaction, every transfer," I said, handing it to Dad, whose eyes darted down the list before he looked away. "Private family matters." Mom snapped, scanning the growing ring of watching guests. "Private until you made my finances public," I answered. "I didn't agree to your performance, and I won't play the part anymore." Uncle William stepped forward, voice firm but calm. "She's right, Eleanor. Enough is enough." My mother's mask cracked visibly. "Family helps family," she sputtered. "Yes," I said, "when help isn't demanded as tribute." The wedding planner, hovering nearby, finally spoke up. "Mrs. Allen asked me personally to prepare that announcement," she said, her voice trembling but clear. She gave me the exact number herself. Gasps fluttered through the group like startled birds. Mom's hand fell from my wrist. Mia looked from me to our mother, realization dawning. "Mom," she whispered, voice breaking. "You told them she was giving $15,000 just to push her." The silence that followed was excruciating. My mother's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. "I won't stand here and be accused by my own daughters," she snapped, grabbing her purse. "Not today." She turned sharply and stormed toward the exit, my father trailing like a shadow. The music resumed, awkward at first, then steadier. Life somehow kept moving. I stood there, breathing evenly, feeling something inside me unclench for the first time in years. Uncle William raised his glass quietly. "About time, Melia." I nodded, tears prickling behind my calm exterior. Across the room, Mia hugged the album closer to her chest, eyes red but open in a new way, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. When I finally left the reception, the night air was cool and sharp against my skin. My heels clicked along the cobblestone path as laughter and music faded behind me. For the first time in years, I wasn't leaving a family event crushed under invisible weight. I wasn't rehearsing apologies in my head or calculating how to refill my savings. I was just free. Back in the hotel room, I placed the album's twin, the one meant for me, on the nightstand, and watched its reflection in the window. Below, the city shimmered indifferent and alive. My phone vibrated relentlessly with notifications, missed calls from Mom, a few from Dad, and one from Kate. Her text was short but perfect. "You did it. Proud of you." I slept deeply that night, something I hadn't done in months. No guilt, no endless loops of self-criticism, no wondering how to make everyone else comfortable. just the soft hum of air conditioning and a quiet sense of release. In the morning, I ordered room service instead of skipping breakfast to save money, ate every bite, and stared out at the sunrise. The color of new beginnings, I thought. I checked my messages out of habit. One stood out, a voicemail from Mom. Her tone was brittle, clipped, still clinging to the illusion of control. "I hope you're satisfied," she said. "You made a fool of this family. People are talking." I deleted it before she finished. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. A week passed. Then two. The silence stretched like sunlight across clean sheets. No sudden texts asking for a small loan until payday. No guilt-laden reminders about what family does. My phone stayed blessedly quiet, and the balance in my account, though modest, finally stopped shrinking. At work, my colleagues noticed the change. "You look lighter," one said during a Monday meeting, and I realized she was right. The constant undercurrent of anxiety had been replaced by something steadier, peace. Then one afternoon, an envelope arrived. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable Mia's. My stomach tightened as I turned it over in my hands. I wasn't sure if I was ready for another confrontation disguised as gratitude, another justification. Still curiosity or maybe hope won. Inside was a single handwritten letter. "Dear Melia," it began. "The photo album sits on our coffee table. David looks through it almost every night, asking about the two girls building sandcastles. I've told him the stories you used to tell me. What I haven't told him is that Mom pressured me into announcing the 15,000. She said it would motivate you. I should have stopped her. I'm sorry I didn't. Your speech wasn't what I expected, but maybe it was what I needed. Love, Mia." I read it twice before folding it carefully and setting it beside my laptop. The paper trembled slightly in my hands, not from anger this time, but from something softer. Forgiveness, maybe. The kind that grows slowly like sunlight through blinds. I opened my own album, The Twin, and turned to a blank page. Then I printed a photo from that day, Mia hugging me after my speech, her makeup smudged, but her eyes sincere. I glued it in, leaving space beside it for whatever came next. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Weeks turned into a month. The tension that had defined my family for decades began to thin like morning fog. My father called once haltingly to ask about property taxes. "Maybe you could advise us on a payment plan," he said, and I almost smiled. It was a small thing, but it meant he was learning to ask for guidance, not money. Mia texted photos of her new apartment, small but bright, and updates about her job. Our conversations were awkward at first, cautious like two people relearning a forgotten language, but slowly they grew natural again. One evening over dinner with friends, Kate raised her glass. "To speaking the truth even when it's hard," she said. The table echoed her toast, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. It wasn't just about that wedding or the money. It was about every woman who's ever been told she owes her worth in silence, who's been applauded for giving until she disappears. That night, I finally understood that honesty isn't cruelty. It's freedom. A few days later, my phone buzzed again. Mom's name lit the screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something inside me had shifted. I answered. Her voice was softer than I remembered, stripped of its commanding edge. "I've been thinking about what happened," she began. "I never realized how much pressure we put on you, the money, the expectations. I convinced myself it was normal. I listened, heart steady. Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I'm open to starting over, but it has to be built on respect this time." There was a pause on her end before she said quietly, "I'd like that." It wasn't an apology wrapped in manipulation. It was genuine, fragile, and enough for now. That weekend, we met for coffee, just the two of us. No grand gestures, no hidden agendas. We talked about work, about Mia's new marriage, about Dad's garden. When the bill came, she reached for it first. I let her. It was small, almost absurdly so, but symbolic all the same. When I got home, I added another photo to my album, a picture of that coffee cup lipstick smudge on the rim, steam curling like a promise of something new. On the first page of the album, under the photo of Mia and me at the lake, I wrote an inscription in neat black ink. The true wealth of family is measured in honesty, not dollars. Then I closed it, leaving the last few pages blank. Not empty, just waiting. Waiting for the kind of love that doesn't require proof, for the kind of generosity that doesn't demand repayment. Waiting for life to fill them with moments that cost nothing and mean everything. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us of the value of truth and courage. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Melia's place?